I used to think the walk home from school was the best part of my day. The road stretched just under a mile from the old brick building to our neighborhood, cutting through a patch of woods that everyone called Briar Hollow. It wasn't a real forest, just a thick strip of trees pressed between the highway and a dried-up creek bed. During the day, sunlight slipped through the branches in golden ribbons, and the wind rustled the leaves like whispered secrets. It felt peaceful, safe. At least it used to. The first time I walked alone was in early October. My mom had started a new job and couldn't pick me up anymore. "It's good for you," she said. "Builds independence." I didn't argue. I was 13. Independence sounded like freedom. The first few days were normal. I'd leave with a rush of kids pouring out the front doors, but while most of them turned toward the bus loop or the parking lot, I'd keep going straight. Past the cracked basketball courts, past the chain-link fence that buzzed faintly when the wind hit it, and then down the narrow path that led into Briar Hollow. The woods always felt a little cooler than the street. The air smelled like damp soil and rotting leaves. Squirrels darted up trees when I passed, and sometimes I'd see deer tracks pressed into the mud near the creek bed. I liked the quiet, but about a week in, I noticed something strange. The bird would stop singing when I entered. At first, I thought I imagined it. I'd be walking, listening to the distant chirping and fluttering, and then step across the invisible line where pavement became dirt, and everything would go silent. No winds, no rustling, no sound except my own footsteps. I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe they were startled by the door slamming behind me. Maybe I was overthinking it. Still, the silence felt heavy. The next strange thing happened on a Thursday. I was halfway through the path when I heard footsteps behind me. They were faint, slow, crunching.
I used to think the walk home from school was the best part of my day. The road stretched just under a mile from the old brick building to our neighborhood, cutting through a patch of woods that everyone called Briar Hollow. It wasn't a real forest, just a thick strip of trees pressed between the highway and a dried-up creek bed. During the day, sunlight slipped through the branches in golden ribbons, and the wind rustled the leaves like whispered secrets. It felt peaceful, safe. At least, it used to. The first time I walked alone was in early October. My mom had started a new job and couldn't pick me up anymore. "It's good for you," she said. "Builds independence." I didn't argue. I was 13. Independence sounded like freedom. The first few days were normal. I'd leave with the rush of kids pouring out of the front doors, but while most of them turned toward the bus loop or the parking lot, I'd keep going straight. Past the cracked basketball courts. Past the chain link fence that buzzed faintly when the wind hit it. And then down the narrow path that led into Briar Hollow. The woods always felt a little cooler than the street. The air smelled like damp soil and rotting leaves. Squirrels darted up trees when I passed, and sometimes I'd see deer tracks pressed into the mud near the creek bed. I liked the quiet, but about a week in, I noticed something strange. The birds would stop singing when I entered. At first, I thought I imagined it. I'd be walking, listening to the distant chirping and fluttering, and then, step across the invisible line where pavement became dirt, and everything would go silent. No wings, no rustling, no sound except my own footsteps. I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe they were startled by the door slamming behind me. Maybe I was overthinking it. Still, the silence felt heavy. The next strange thing happened on a Thursday. I was halfway through the path when I heard footsteps behind me. They were faint, slow, crunching lightly over leaves. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I turned around. No one. The path curved slightly, and trees leaned inward, their branches tangled overhead like bony fingers. But the trail behind me was empty. "Hello," I called out, feeling stupid immediately. No answer. Just the distant hum of cars from the highway. I stood there for a full minute, heart thudding, then laughed nervously and kept walking. Probably an animal, I thought. But as soon as I started moving again, crunch, 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 the steps returned. They matched mine perfectly. When I sped up, they sped up. When I slowed, they slowed. I didn't turn around again. I just walked faster and faster until the trees thinned and I burst out onto Maple Street, lungs burning. The footsteps stopped the moment I left the woods. That night, I barely slept. The following afternoon, I almost asked one of my classmates to walk with me. But something held me back. Pride, maybe, or embarrassment. What would I even say? "Hey, I think the forest is following me." Instead, I left school at my usual time and stepped into Briar Hollow again. The silence hit me like a wall. No birds, no insects, nothing. Halfway down the trail, I stopped on purpose. I didn't hear footsteps. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Just when I began to relax. Crunch. Directly behind me. Not echoing mine. Not matching my pace. Just one single, deliberate step. I spun around so fast I nearly slipped. There was something between the trees. Not a person. Not an animal. A shape. Tall. Thin. Too thin. It stood about 20 feet away, partially hidden behind a trunk. I could only see a sliver of it, something pale and vertical, like a stretched out shadow. Who's there? I demanded, trying to sound braver. Then I felt. It didn't move. I blinked. And it was gone. I ran the rest of the way home. That night, I told my mom I didn't like walking through the woods. She barely looked up from her laptop. It's the shortest route. I think someone's in there. Sweetheart, it's 3 in the afternoon. If someone was hiding in those trees every day, someone else would have noticed. I wanted to argue, but I didn't know how to explain what I'd seen. It hadn't looked like someone. The next day, I decided to take the long way around, following the main road instead. It would add 20 minutes to my walk, but at least I wouldn't have to step into that suffocating quiet again. I made it halfway down the sidewalk before my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then opened the message. Why did you change your path? My blood turned to ice. I looked around wildly. Cars passed. A woman jogged with her dog across the street. Everything looked normal. Another message appeared. You're supposed to walk through the trees. I dropped my phone. When I picked it up, the messages were gone. No unknown number. No notification. Just my home screen. My hands were shaking. I stood there for a long time, staring at the entrance to Briar Hollow across the street. The wind stirred the leaves. The trees seemed expectant. I don't know why I did it. But I crossed the road and stepped back into the woods. The silence welcomed me. This time, the air felt colder. Thicker. Like walking through invisible water. I tried to keep my breathing steady. Halfway through the path, I felt it before I saw it. That sensation of being watched. Not casually observed. Studied. Measured. I didn't stop walking. I didn't turn around. But in the corner of my eye, I saw movement between the trees. Something pacing me. Tall. Lanky. Its limbs bent at angles that didn't look right. I told myself not to look directly at it. Because deep down, I knew. If I saw it clearly, it would know I could see it. And something about that felt dangerous. The footsteps behind me grew louder. Not matching mine now. Closing in. Crunch. 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 I broke into a run. Branches whipped against my arms. My backpack bounced violently against my spine. I didn't dare glance back. The footsteps turned into pounding. Heavy. Fast. Right behind me. I could feel its breath on the back of my neck. Cold. Rotten. Just as I reached the edge of the woods, something grabbed my backpack. I screamed and fell forward onto the pavement, scraping my hands. I scrambled around. The woods were empty. My backpack lay a few feet away, one strap torn clean through. I snatched it and ran all the way home without looking back. That night, I locked my bedroom window for the first time in years. Around 2:17 a.m., I woke up to tapping. Soft, rhythmic, tap, 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 coming from the glass. My bed was right under the window. I lay frozen, staring at the ceiling. Tap, tap, tap. Slowly, I turned my head. The curtain shifted slightly in the breeze from the vent. Tap. A long, pale finger slid down the outside of the window. I bit my hand to stop from screaming. Another finger appeared. Then another. They were too long. Jointed too many times. The hand pressed flat against the glass. And behind it, a face. It didn't have features the way ours do. No nose. No lips. Just stretched. Gray skin pulled tight over a skull-like shape. But where the eyes should have been, there were two deep, hollow dents. And somehow, I knew it was looking at me. The tapping stopped. The head tilted slowly to one side. As if confused. As if curious. Then the mouth split open vertically down the center of its face. Not horizontally. Vertically. Like something tearing through fabric. Inside was nothing but darkness. I couldn't breathe. The creature leaned closer, pressing its face fully against the glass. The window began to creak. The glass bowed inward. I finally found my voice and screamed. The face vanished instantly. The pressure on the window released. My mom burst into the room seconds later, flipping on the light. What happened? There was something at the window. She rushed over and yanked the curtain aside. Nothing. Just the quiet street outside. You were dreaming, she said gently. I wasn't. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. There were no marks on the glass. No fingerprints. Nothing. The next afternoon, I refused to walk home. I called my mom from the office and begged her to pick me up. She sighed but agreed. For 2 days, she drove me. Nothing happened. No messages. No tapping. I started to think maybe stress had gotten to me. Maybe I'd imagined everything. On the third day, my mom couldn't leave work. You'll be fine, she insisted. It's just a short walk. I stood at the entrance to Briar Hollow, heart hammering. The trees seemed darker than before. Closer together. Watching. I'm not scared of you, I whispered. That was a mistake. The silence this time wasn't empty. It felt pleased. I stepped onto the dirt path. The temperature dropped instantly. Halfway through, I saw it clearly for the first time. It stood in the middle of the trail. Waiting. Up close, it was at least 7 feet tall. Its limbs were impossibly thin, like stretched wire beneath sagging gray skin. Its arms hung past its knees. Its fingers nearly brushed the ground. Its head twitched slightly, jerking in tiny, unnatural movements. The hollow-eyed dents faced me. It didn't move to attack. It just stood there, blocking the path. Leave me alone, I whispered. The creature's head tilted again. Then, slowly, it raised one arm and pointed behind me. I turned. The trail behind me was gone. Not obscured. Gone. In its place stood an endless wall of trees, packed so tightly together that no light filtered through. When I looked back, the creature had stepped closer. I could see the texture of its skin now, like wet paper stretched over bone. It opened its vertical mouth again. This time, a sound came out. Not a roar, not a growl, a whisper. My name, over and over. Soft, breathy, right inside my head. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The whispering grew louder. Walk with me. The creature extended its hand. Up close, I could see that its fingers ended not in nails, but in thin, jagged splinters of bone. Walk with me. The forest seemed to pulse around us. I realized something horrible then. It hadn't been following me. I had been walking its path. Every day. For weeks. And now, it was my turn to follow it. The creature took a step forward. I stumbled back. My foot hit something solid. I glanced down. The trail was back. The exit to Maple Street was just 10 feet behind me. I didn't hesitate. I ran. The whispering rose into a shriek inside my skull. The ground seemed to grab at my shoes. Branches clawed at my arms. But I broke through the trees and collapsed onto the sidewalk, gasping. When I looked back, Briar Hollow looked normal. Sunlight filtered through the leaves. Birds chirped. Children's laughter echoed faintly from the school. I never walked through those woods again. My mom arranged for me to take the late bus. For a while, everything felt normal. Until last night, I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed. A notification. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. There was no text. Just a photo. It was a picture of Briar Hollow's path. Taken from inside the trees. Facing outward. Toward the street. Toward where someone would exit. The next message came seconds later. You stopped walking. Then another. I'm still here. And finally, a live location pin. Not in the woods. Not near the school. But directly outside my house. The power went out as I read it. The bathroom light flickered and died. The house fell into darkness. From somewhere outside my bedroom window. Tap, tap, tap. I don't walk home from school anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I hear footsteps pacing just beyond the walls. Matching mine.